What's up guys, it's Alex here, your friendly reef dog, and today I'm going to tell you 7 things about keeping SPS corals that you don't normally find out until later down the line. Now before we get into the video, if you are new to the channel, I put out a video like this every Friday at 4 PM UK time, which is 10 AM Central Time. So if you love reefing videos, have a think about subscribing. Right, let's take a look. Number 7 is that changing Rowaphos reduces your alkalinity. Rowaphos tumbling in a media reactor is the most effective way of removing phosphate from your aquarium. But what people don't tell you is that changing Rowaphos actually causes your alkalinity to drop. SPS corals love stability, and if you use large amounts of Rowaphos, the drop can be quite significant and could cause problems if you don't catch it. So if and when you do use Rowaphos, just change a small amount every week. Number 6, SPS Get Big. Given the right conditions, SPS corals will grow fast and will get big. The temptation when you start buying SPS corals is to put them nice and close to each other to make your tank look good straight away. But it's far better to give them a bit of space to grow into. As with any coral, when SPS grows, it becomes a pain to constantly trim back, and SPS skeletons can get very thick, making them difficult to frag. So whether you can give them their own ledge or put them on the side of a rock, your future self will thank you for thinking ahead. Number 5 is that SPS like nutrients. The general rule often mentioned is that soft and LPS corals like dirty water and SPS corals like clean water. And there are numerous SPS tanks that support that theory, particularly those that run Zeovit. But it's not quite as black and white as that, and it's not true to say you should be aiming for zero nitrates and phosphates to keep SPS. With corals, it's not about chasing numbers, but phosphates of around 0.03 and nitrates of around 5 parts per million will likely give your SPS better coloration than ultra low levels. And the beauty of this is, if you have low nutrients, it's a great excuse to add more fish. Number 4 is that not all Acropora are difficult to keep. Acropora are often seen as the pinnacle of SPS corals and something to aspire to, but it's not necessarily true to say that all Acropora are expert only. Acropora valida and Acropora youngi, better known as barley green slimer, are great examples of beginner-friendly Acropora corals. And it's fair to say that tank-grown Acropora, either bought from other hobbyists or aquaculture farms, are likely to be more hardy than wild-caught specimens. You should of course be careful about the corals you buy when you start keeping SPS, and there are plenty of other easier corals to start with, but don't necessarily write off all Acropora just because of the name. Number 3 is that you should consider dosing iodine. Iodine is very often too low in reef tanks, and adding a small amount can have a noticeable impact on the coloration, growth and health of your SPS corals. Working out how much iodine to dose is tricky because home kits are notoriously inaccurate, and it's very easy to overdose iodine. So the ideal solution is to send off an ICP test that will tell you what your levels are and will suggest how much you should dose. And while I'm a firm believer that you should never dose anything in your tank if you don't know what its levels are, I wouldn't mind betting most reef tanks would benefit from a drop of iodine a week. Number 2 is that you need to get to know your corals. When you buy an SPS coral, you'll usually be told it will need strong light and flow, and while that's probably true of most SPS, it's not true of all species. So before you putty them in place, give them a few weeks in a particular spot and be prepared to move them if they don't do well. I recently bought this Acropora frag and put it in a medium to high light spot. But it started to bleach, and when I moved it to a lower spot, it came back and is now thriving. You might find some SPS show better coloration in stronger light or flow than others, so don't be scared to move your frags around a little in order to get to know what sort of conditions they like. And number 1 on my list is that flow is more important than light. Given SPS corals are photosynthetic and are often found in shallow reefs in the wild, it's natural to assume that lighting is the single most important thing to get right. And while light is important, flow is absolutely crucial for SPS corals, and many experienced reefers will tell you it's even more important than light. Among other things, good flow promotes gas exchange, which increases oxygen and pH and decreases CO2, all of which will help with coloration and growth in your SPS corals. It seems more and more popular now to have SPS dominated tanks with no sand. Now that's not a look I personally like, but it does allow increased flow with no flat spots for optimal SPS conditions. So before you blow all your budget on lights for your new SPS corals, have a think about whether your tank might benefit from improved flow. Hint, it probably will. So there you have it then. They are my 7 beginner tips for keeping SPS corals that you don't normally find out at first. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe for future content, and in the meantime check out some of my other videos, and until next time, I've been the Reef Talk. Thank you, good night.